Welcome back, everybody. You know what time it is. It is Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is the Relationship Gumbo Podcast Live Edition. And I want you to do me a favor. I want you to invite your friends and family and everybody that you know needs to listen to this tonight. Tonight, we're talking about addiction. We're talking about coping mechanisms. We're talking about recovery. And I have an extra special guest coming on. So give me about 30 seconds. I want to make sure everything is going where it needs to go. I'll be right back and then we'll get right into it. So stand by.
Okay, everybody wants good love, that's true, I know. Derek Jones about to break it down with the Relationship Gumbo. Welcome to the podcast. Ain't no doubt we all need this, ayy, cause better relationships need better ingredients, ayy. So if you want better relations, it's about communication, finding love, staying together. We all wanna make it better, yeah. Derek Jones, the host, your relationship coach. Thank you all for tuning in. Relationship Gumbo, ayy.
All right, everybody, we are here. And what I want you to do first and foremost, a couple of housekeeping things. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube page, I want you to subscribe to the YouTube page, which you should be watching right now. Subscribe to the YouTube page. Make sure you click that bell. Make sure you click that you want it to notify you of all of the content, because all the content is valuable to you, whether you know it or not. So, and you also have about 130 episodes to go through and pick and choose or binge them all. Some people have binged them all from day one, which I thought was amazing. But there's a lot of good value there in content and guests and everything. So the other thing to note is we are also an audio podcast. Academy. The Relationship Gumbo Love Academy is live. You can go to myrelationshipgumbo.com and you can get all the information there. Make sure that you download the app that's attached to it so that you can get all of the information and it's all in one place. We also have online courses and ebooks. So you have courses on there, you have ebooks, and it will grow monthly so that you'll be able to get new content that you can gravitate towards and help you make better decisions, because that's what we do here at Relationship Gumbo. We give you the good ingredients to make that gumbo taste good. So without further ado, if this is your first time here, the way I normally run the podcast is I will pause for 3 seconds. We'll start the podcast, and then at the end of the show, I'll pause for another 3 seconds, so we'll have a place to chop it off on both ends, and you'll get that good audio that you can listen to in your headphones. So give me about 3 seconds, and we'll get into it. And welcome to another episode of the Relationship Gumbo Podcast. My name is Derek Jones, and I am your host. I'm a certified life coach, an engineer, a strategist, and a mental health advocate. And tonight, we are, I would say, blessed to have an amazing guest to talk about addiction and recovery. And the title that I chose for this is, Has Your Coping Mechanism Become an Addiction? So we're just going to expand on that. And with his knowledge, expertise, and life experience, we're going to take a little dive, maybe a little deep sometimes, but we're going to get in there so that you guys can really get some value out of this. So without further ado, let me bring him up and make sure he's unmuted so we can introduce ourselves to him. 1 second, let me make sure. Okay, I think he's unmuted. How you doing, sir? Welcome to the show, Hugo V.
Doing well, Derek. Welcome. Thank you.
So let our audience know who you are and what do you do in terms of your work with addiction and recovery.
Thank you. Hugo V. So I have a company called lifeiswonderful.love, where I deal mainly with helping people recover from addictions, but also if you're dealing with emotional issues like anxiety, depression, in ways to kind of just get what everybody wants, to live your best life. Everybody keeps saying that thing. You hear it all over social media. And I do it just through sharing my own experience, my own knowledge, as well as just in an entertaining value. And I'm all over social media, podcasts, and so there's a lot of ways to just get the help you need, and that's the main thing. And realizing we don't have to go through life alone. There's so many people and products out there. Sometimes we just got to just keep our ears open and just
Hmm.
then grow from there.
Right, right, and that's amazing. And I think this being a relationship show and just how we connect as humans, I'm a very big advocate for community building and people connecting with people. It doesn't always have to be romantic. We're put on this earth to collaborate with each other, to learn from each other and help each other heal. And so that lends itself into what you do as well. So let's just get into it. The first thing I want to do is I wanted to ask you, with this area of addiction, recovery, and you said emotional, things that deal with emotions. What made you choose this personally? What made you go down this direction of actually helping people with their, with the things that they're dealing with in this area?
It's one of those things. Sometimes you don't choose it. God chooses for you. I
Absolutely.
say this, I'm a grateful compulsive gambler, grateful alcoholic. I went down the road of addiction for over 20 years, and I've been in recovery now over 25 years.
Hmm.
And so it's one of those things over time, uh, we look over all the gifts that God has given us. And, God gave me the gift to speak in front of people, public speaking. After I got out of University of Texas, I just wanted to explore public speaking more. And then, of course, with the addictions, then recovery, realized that another gift was recovery and the ability to make sense of it all. Because a lot of people struggle. They sometimes hesitate to go to 12 step rooms, they hesitate to get therapy, whether it's with a psychologist or a counselor. And I realized that I did both. I did outpatient as well as 12-step rooms. And then just over time, a voracious reader would read not only 12-step literature, but anything like you were talking about, boundaries,
Right.
love, all those things that are so necessary to have healthy relationships. First off, that relationship with ourselves. I have to
Right.
love myself and I have to be in charge of me before I can love someone else. And once I
Right.
can do that, just like opens the floodgates. And I think people just pick up on energy. And
Yes.
then especially us being men, women will pick up and other men will pick up. There's a certain sense of peace and serenity because I've done that emotional work.
Right, right, right. And I'm a very big proponent of, and the reason why I chose to even go the route of coaching versus like and always champion and uphold people who are counselors, therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists. More power to you. But I also know that there is power in the ability to relate to people in a language that they can understand, because a lot of times, even, and I'm sure you've seen it with the 12 step programs and these type of things, sometimes it connects with people that when you have the ability to translate these things, a lot of times people have a fear of the unknown. They have a fear that they'll be judged, and then you just come into them as yourself with your experience, and somehow that energy that you talked about, it starts to feel warm, and it's like, I'll listen to this guy. I've been trying to figure this out for the past 5 years, but this right here, this connects. So um so the next thing I want to talk about is, you talked about 20 years gambling, alcohol, and the nucleus of it, I think, as I listen to some of the things that you talk about, is emotions, emotional intelligence, and things like that. I want you to speak to the audience about how because I don't think, and I may be on a stretch here, I don't think a lot of people, regular everyday people, even think about the emotional side of addiction. They just see the end result. So I want you to talk about how emotions tie into addictive behavior, whether it be alcohol, gambling, or whatever the mechanism is.
Well, that's what the people have to realize, that all addiction is emotional diseases. The first thing really to get healthy and to recover is to understand that you have an emotional disease and there is a solution. There is a way out. Unfortunately, we grow up here in the United States and around the world, and we go to school, and the two most important subjects are never taught to us: emotional intelligence and financial literacy. And then we
Yeah.
wonder why so many people have problems in relationships and with money. And then we bang our
Yeah.
head. I mean, we need English, we need math, we need science, we need all those things. But you know what? We are alive and breathing, so that means we are feeling every single day. I'll bring this into really quick. So I grew up in a
Hmm.
family that was pushed a lot, academically, athletically, and growing up Catholic, we went to church every week. So, we were pushed to learn about God. But we just didn't. My parents, their parents, no one talked about emotions. I mean, this whole topic of psychology was pretty much unknown 100 years ago, even 50 years ago. So they kind of grew up in a home that just didn't talk about, oh, how are you feeling, Hugo? What's going on? And so when things would happen, either within the family or in the neighborhood or in school, there was no vehicle to identify a feeling, process a feeling, and then move on and grow up, healthier emotionally. So by the time I got into to see a therapist when I was about 32, I went in there, and the guy and my therapist, he says, what do you feel? And I had about maybe three feelings,
Hmm.
anxiety, anger. Sometimes I felt a little bit of excitement or joy. And so I said, I feel anxious. And then he says, what else do you feel? And I thought this was a trick question. I just gave you one feeling. So he sees me struggling, and he says, a child that's like 5 to 8 has one feeling at a time. An adult has
Hmm.
multiple feelings all the time. And so then I started to know, then when I was 32, see, I'm 55 now. So I've been
Hmm.
doing this now for a long time. I had to realize I have to really study and understand my emotions, as well as understanding everything else in terms of career and in terms of learning just other subjects that could advance myself professionally. But realize, if I really wanted to truly understand the biggest subject, which was me, I had to understand emotions. And then in turn, because like you said, like you're a relationship coach, everybody wants to find love. Well, it's hard to find love when you don't even know how to love yourself, or
That's it.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I really, like, I would say probably in the past, maybe like 5 years, have really come to understand like how important just understanding how you feel and your emotions play into literally everything we do in life. And not understanding it could be, detrimental and deadly in some cases. And even like for what I do with relationships, it's like all of that picks and chooses who you choose. And if you're dealing with a lot of stuff, you're picking with that part of yourself. And then next thing you know, you're wondering, why am I sitting here crying in the corner? And you never even realized that there was a feeling that you couldn't regulate. Because I'll really quickly, like, I always tell people about my story of the pain that I felt from being cheated on by, like, three consecutive girlfriends. And then there was a point where I was just like a basket case. And I think there was a point, and I don't know if you could call it, maybe it was addictive behavior, but there was a lot of alcohol involved. Um, in order for me to kind of mute down, it wasn't every day, but when I did go out socially, it was a it was an event with alcohol. And now in hindsight, I'm thinking, I had that moment, and then I had another moment when I was married the first time after the divorce. The behavior I always tell people, the behavior, no matter what my mouth says, the behavior will always tell a story. So um so back to what you were saying about you dealing with these things for so long, I want you to talk to people about the maybe the difference between some of the behaviors and how we cope, and then the difference between that and like when it actually becomes an addiction? Like, what does that look like?
Uh, well, a lot of it is what happens to us. We have a lot of emotions, and so we don't know exactly what's going on. So we may use a substance. Let's say it's food. Let's say it's alcohol. Let's say it's smoking, gambling, sex. Whatever. Because we're really trying to find out life. And like I said, we all grew up not being taught at home or in schools on how to really regulate our emotions. And so, unfortunately, a lot of us are living life blind. And so we overdo things. I would ask people, and this is usually most people will say, no, I'm not that bad. No, I got this.
Mm-hmm.
No one wants to admit that they need help. And here's the thing, we all need help. Even to this day, I have a lot of people that I can call and talk about my feelings
Mm-hmm.
openly, intimately, being vulnerable. And because now, I'm on YouTube, I'm on everything, everybody knows my story.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it this way, so many people are so afraid to really love, even though they want love. They want this
Mm-hmm.
great love affair, this great one. But in turn, a lot of us are so afraid to tell our true selves to ourselves and to another person, and then wonder why the other person doesn't completely love them. Because everyone can pick up walls, even though they cannot identify emotional walls.
Mm-hmm.
And you know why people put up walls is because I think people, even though they say they want love, they're more afraid of rejection than actual
Mm-hmm.
being in this great love. It's
Yeah.
almost this fear of success, and
Yeah.
it's hard
Yeah.
to kind of just say, this is what I want, because no one wants to say, I love you, and then the other person say, I don't love you back, or
Right.
silence. And in turn, all you're doing is stating a feeling. Let's say, you know, my girlfriend's on the other line and I say, I love you. And then she no longer loved me. Of course, that's going to hurt. Of course, there's going to be grief. There's going to be
Mm-hmm.
sadness. There's going to be disappointment. There's going to be all these different feelings. And there's so many ways to get it out, whether it's journaling, another person, a lot of different things. And, we can, but we run from the pain. And here's the thing, number one, like you were kind of addressing it, pain is what actually makes us grow. We
Right.
grow from pain. And the other thing is if we truly became emotionally courageous and just said whatever we are feeling,
Mm-hmm.
we become free. That is, to me, the true definition of freedom. A lot of times,
Right.
here in the United States, they throw out the flag, they talk about freedom, freedom, freedom. And in reality, it is the freedom within your soul. It is the
Mm-hmm.
freedom to just live the life that you want to live, because you're not so worried that someone knows something that happened to
Right.
you in the past, or that you have some big dream. I tell people all the time, I just started this company, Life is Wonderful. Love, 2 years ago. And, I said, I'm going to grow it from zero to $100 million.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few people that kind of like small business entrepreneurs that say yes, but I get a lot of people kind of probably shaking their heads, going, you don't
Right.
know, either it's they're jealous, or they're envious, or they don't believe in me, or they don't see it's possible. I said, look, I've done a lot of different research, and I know what the market's out there. Now I have to work; it doesn't just
Right.
come to me. But a lot of people just don't want to put out there what you want. I know a list of everything that I want, and I think that's where we can start.
Right. Yeah, a lot of us have a fear of being judged by our peers, our family, and society, to the point where we stifle ourselves, sometimes almost indefinitely.
But here's the thing, Derek: we are going to be judged.
Very
We
true.
are going to be criticized. Until we learn that there is going to be a lot of rejection. Just like, I mean, you've started a podcast, you're in business. There is a lot of rejection starting something like a podcast, like a business, your coaching business. But you keep moving forward. You get
Yep.
up. That's that whole thing is to kind of learn resiliency, to learn perseverance and discipline. What wins out. What do little kids want the most? They want consistency from a parent.
Right.
They're not so hung up on, how much money daddy and mommy make. Yeah, everybody wants opportunities. They do want love, but they want something kind of consistent, that
Mm-hmm.
they can come home and rely to. And it's the same thing with a man and a woman or any other relationship, even same
Right.
sex or marriage. People want that their other partner is kind of consistent, that they're not constantly coming out of left field. And then that's where people start thinking, is there another person? Are you gambling? Are you drinking? Is there another addiction? Because behavior usually will tell out a person.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the tenets that I my coaching business is built around is the behavior always tells. Cause I like when I talked about like me getting divorced and I didn't have a horrible divorce. It was very like down the middle, split everything, let's go your way. And I was like, because of that, I should be okay, right? I should be fine. And I was telling everybody, yo, we're not enemies, everything's cool. But my behavior was I was going out like 4, 5 nights out of the week drinking, and I was like, the behavior doesn't match the word. The words don't match the behavior. He's doing that for a reason. I didn't realize this until probably like 10 or 15 years later. Like maybe I was connected to this person for some years. Like there's still some stuff in there that I didn't even think would play out, but it did. And I think that happens to a lot of people, and that's why when people are like, yeah, I just got divorced, but it's fine, I'm fine, I'm about to go out here and date again. I'm like, you give it some air. You've been with this person for 10 years. Give it some air before you just jump out there and think everything's okay. You're a human being. You were connected to another human being for a decade. So I do want to mention this though, where you talked about having discipline and perseverance, and when we talk about addiction, and then we move into recovery, and I want you to speak on this because this is your expertise. The perseverance and the fortitude that you have to even go through that process has to be like tremendous. I just want you to share with people like where people have to go, and maybe even where you had to go to even get the ability to push through and finish it out and recover.
Well, it comes down to, what do you truly want? And, I knew that I wanted to no longer feel miserable. I wanted a certain amount of peace in my heart because I was always fighting, and I was mainly fighting with myself. So when I first walked into a 12-step room, I just said, well, okay, I'm going to stop drinking and I'm going to just try to find some answers. And so then I stopped drinking, but I was still gambling, so I still had a way to escape my feelings. I could kind of numb out and just kind of, leave whatever situation was making me upset, or even if it was a happy day. And then I went into therapy, a year and a half later, kind of therapy, and I was learning about emotions. And then a year and a half later is when I finally got into getting help for my gambling addiction.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing, even as all that's going on, and I understood that there's a line in the stand. No matter what I'm feeling, a drink or a bet was not going to alleviate my feelings were going to remain. And that's what people have to realize. Your feelings are not going to go away because you go back, you relapse, you go back and do a drug, you do back some type of behavior, whether it's sex, food, or gambling. But it didn't mean that I still didn't have, issues where I would get overwhelmed or I would get
Mm-hmm.
anxious. And then, I usually tell people, especially if their addiction is not food, you tend to overeat. I love eating chips or pie, and gained about 10 or 15 pounds. There was some emotional eating, as
Mm-hmm.
well as I was at least getting back and being on a better schedule to run and to lift. And finally, when I got into recovery, I was finally able, even though it was always on my list. I want to run a marathon. I ended up running 2 marathons, and that's the thing is you got to kind of see that nothing is going to change by doing your addiction, and until you then you still got to then figure out what is true health. We talk about mental health, but I try to put it in, we just need to be healthy lifestyle, and not the stuff that we put, the stuff that we read, the stuff that we watch, the stuff that we eat, the stuff that we do for our bodies, because that's really going to enable us to enjoy our complete life. No one wants to get older and then constantly feel like, oh, my muscles don't work, or I'm getting Alzheimer's, or some, feeling weaker. We want to feel strong all the way throughout till the end.
Right. And the place that my mind is going right now is through the addiction, even maybe like prior to you actually going to the 12-step program for when you first got to that point. I want you to speak about how it affected your environment around you, or did it? Because I know some people will say they're functioning, whatever, and nobody knows, and all of this. And there's other people where you just know something's wrong, and then the people around you get affected by it. I want you to speak to how your environment was affected by what you were going through, if any.
Yeah, that's an excellent example. A lot of people like to say, I drink a lot, but it doesn't affect my life. Or I gamble big numbers and it doesn't really matter. Or I smoke weed, or I pop X number of pills. People know that something is off.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, in the old days, country doctors could look at you and they could see if you had some type of ailment. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times now most doctors are now trained, okay, we got to run a test. But in
Right.
the old days, you can look if someone looks like they're puffy,
Mm-hmm.
or somehow the coloration of their skin has kind of changed, either darker or lighter, and all these things are telltale signs that you're not working or you're not living at your 100%. What you're doing when you say I'm functioning is you're doing like that famous thing, what they call rationalization or justification.
Mm-hmm.
We can kind of tell people, no, my relationship is really good, or yeah, we have some fights, but the sex is really good. But if you're constantly fighting, there's something else going on. If you learn to have more peace and more love, your sex could even be greater than we're at whatever level you're at, and your communication can be better. And the one thing that I tell people is, and I learned, and probably didn't want to admit it, is when you have enough sex, when you're gambling a lot, or you're drunk and you're drinking, or you're high, and in your head you think you're a great lover, but the other person may have a different judging score sheet, and she may say, no, uh, you're a little bit off, you're not listening. And then we wonder why people don't want to have sex with us, is because they're picking up on the energy. They may not be able to pinpoint it directly,
Mm-hmm.
but they know something. And
Yeah.
like gambling is a great example. A lot of spouses will think the other person is cheating on them,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not, because they have gotten into the throes of gambling, and now all of a sudden, the joint bank account or the 401k is taking a big hit. And it's unfortunate, though, and you ask a lot of people, what would hurt you more? Physical cheating, emotional cheating, or someone losing a large sum of your combined money or your
Mm.
savings or what? And most people will say, I will not tolerate physical cheating. Physical cheating means that we're going to get a divorce. I'm completely out. They're
Mm-hmm.
much more forgiving on emotional relationships, which I
Mm-hmm.
think are much more hurtful, because that's an intimacy that really can only come from a true couple.
Mm-hmm.
Or when someone really shatters your security and takes that, but people are more willing to kind of forgive large sums of money. And I think people have to really ask themselves, and I don't know why, I think it's been almost ingrained in our subconscious that physical cheating is the ultimate form of betrayal. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just saying betrayal is betrayal in a lot of ways.
Right.
And I think if I took away your security and I was a lot more intimate with someone else, when someone truly says I had physical sex with someone and it really didn't mean anything, because I did it too. When I was gambling and drinking, I cheated on every single girlfriend, and to me, I didn't feel anything, and I don't think I was truly in love with the people that I was when I was in my addictions, and I know I had zero feelings and no love for the people that I had affairs with or I slept with.
Yeah, I remember when I years ago, like probably like maybe around 2000 or so, I had moved into a new house, and my neighbors, they had like newlyweds, they had like a new infant, and I would say maybe within the first 8 or 9 months of them living there, they found out that the wife found out that the husband was gambling all the mortgage money away, and they didn't have anything. She ended up leaving him, but it takes like that, like what you just said, like that right there. Some people may say, oh, we can make the money back or whatever, but that's huge. Like, you have a brand new family, and I have to assume that this had to be an addiction for him because he couldn't stop, to the point where they literally had to like move out of the house because it was so serious. And I was just like, how could someone do that? But then when you talk about the emotional stuff and the things that people do, it can happen. It literally can. I won't say it can happen to anyone, but it can happen to a lot of people if you don't know how to regulate and manage, your emotions, or at least being aware, having emotional intelligence to kind of know, like, this is where I am and I don't want to stay here, kind of thing. But yeah, I've seen it like right in front of my face. I was like what, like how, like they're moving out already, and the wife was like, yeah, he's been gambling the money every month, and we have an infant, and we can't do anything. And I was just like, wow. So I know this happens every day, but it's huge when you talk about like the physical, the emotional, the stability, and which ones people take more serious. That's serious too. Like, people.
Well, I'll tell you, it's going to get worse. And it's going to get worse because most states are trying to regulate and condone all forms of gambling. All the
Mm,
major sports leagues are pushing DraftKings, FanDuel. It's not just betting before, like, oh, someone knew they had a bookie or they're betting amongst their friends. Now there's all kinds of prop betting. And for anybody out there that has a child who's headed off to college, the right now, what is especially we're going to be coming into football season. The biggest spike is going to be college age students that are going to get in over their heads. They're going to do a lot more gambling because it's on their phones. They're going to get in
mm,
trouble, and there's going to be a lot more financial problems, maxed out credit cards. They're going to get second jobs. There's going to be they're going to spike more than other demographic populations, and people have to be very aware. And it goes back to what are you feeling? Because a lot of kids will say, "Oh, it's not a big deal. I'm just putting $10 on this parlay or on this game," and then it just slowly increases. And unfortunately, if they win early, they kind of get seduced into these big amounts, and then, oh,
yeah,
I can do a little bit more because I'm gambling with house money. And then they get into big. Then they start gambling. Well, then $10 becomes 50, becomes 100, becomes
yeah,
500, and then they start losing. And then they don't have. It's not like you have the Federal Reserve behind you. You don't have. You can't keep printing money.
yeah.
You got to come up with money somehow, or your credit gets affected.
Yeah, I'm gonna read a couple comments, and then I wanna slightly piggyback off of what you just said. Dope
Yeah.
Discussions Live podcast says, if you're dishonest in one area of life, you're probably lying about a lot more stuff. John Singletary, when we talked about the emotional, physical, and he said it's emotional cheating for him. He said, I mean, I don't want none of them, but if I had to choose one, and Love Tucker says all the betrayal is a no for me. So yeah, as you said that, it did not dawn on me that people gamble on their phones. Like, I'm seriously like thinking, like, okay, somebody says gambling, they're going to a casino or they're going to a horse track or whatever.
Mm-mm.
But yeah, they people literally 24/7 can be right in their bed just going for it. I don't even like we're in the
There's
internet
online
era.
casinos. There's everything.
Yeah,
You
like
can do so much on your phone. You can be playing poker, roulette, gambling on a game, all kinds of stuff. And then, and it doesn't matter. You can be around the world. Here, we don't, we're not really big on soccer, but soccer is just like football. As much
yeah,
money that is bet on football here in the United States, it's around the world, it's going to be soccer. Horse racing's been around for 100 of years. A lot of, and then casinos. It's all going to keep going. But here's the thing about betrayal. And so people say, I don't want to be betrayed. And so I always try to say, okay, so when I got into a program and I started working on myself, I grew up, I never learned how to say I'm sorry. And so
hmm
it was always kind of difficult to say it. Even as I got older, people say, well, you just got to say you're sorry. And I learned how to say I'm sorry, but it's still something that I would struggle with. But then we got to ask ourselves the question, okay, to avoid saying I'm sorry, then that means my behavior has to be to the point where I'm not making that many mistakes. I'm making as
hmm
few mistakes. So, and it comes to the whole thing about betrayal. A lot of people say, I can't believe you cheated on me. I can't believe you did this. And that is true. Each person has responsibility for their own actions and what they do with their partner. But in a lot of ways, if I wake up today and I say, I'm going to love my girlfriend the best way I can. And,
hmm
whether it's with a text, whether it's calling her up saying, I love you, whether it's taking them out to dinner, and it's really a lot of it is those small little gestures of appreciation and gratitude saying, I'm grateful you're in my life. I love your family and this and that, though that will really kind of solidify another person is not going to cheat. I'll flip it on the side of like workplace. What is usually was probably the number one complaint of why somebody leaves a company is because they never felt valued, they never felt listened to, they never felt like there was a room for improvement or to move up. They always felt like they were in a dead end job. It works the same way in a relationship. If you don't want someone to cheat on you or betray you, or even worse, or just feel like there's less sex, there's less communication, there's less quality time, then we have to be much more proactive in our emotions and really knowing our emotions. Okay, well, why are you with this person? You know,
right.
and then really spend time. You got to take care of yourself as well as love the other person. But then it gets back to emotions.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't it interesting how everything almost everything leads back to that one place that one place. Like I've been thinking about this a lot like these past couple of weeks, and it's like all of these different things that we go through in life and the decisions we make, most of them go back to how you feel. Whether it's something of how you feel right now, something you've been dealing with, systematically throughout the years, it always comes. So if you gain somewhat of a control of that, that's power that you wield in your life. So it's interesting, and I try my best for my platform to to really like talk about how important that is to understand, like just knowing who you are in general, like you said earlier, just taking the time to get to know yourself, and along with that comes the emotional stuff and understanding what those things are. Um, so
And then also knowing that as we age, a lot of certain things will change because the
yeah,
way we felt about certain things at 20 or 30 or 40 has changed.
yeah. Yeah. Comment here. Dope Discussions Live says no dead end jobs and no dead end relationships. She doesn't want any of them. And John Singer,
Nobody does.
right? And you know what's funny? Side note. You know what's well not funny, haha, but funny, ironic is that there's a lot of us that exist in these dead end jobs in perpetuity, and we just suck it up and we deal with it, and we just, and it's like a I don't want to call it ticking time bomb, but it's like the amount of stress that comes along with that, and then that permeates throughout everything else that you have to deal with, your
Yeah,
kids,
but
your
we do the same thing in relationships.
yeah,
I was personally guilty of staying in relationships much longer when they ended. Sometimes we're told, "Oh, you just have to persevere." And sometimes, and I understand it becomes more complicated if you're married, if there's kids, if there's a mortgage, there's certain things. But in the end, if one person is changing and the other person isn't, because that's also what's seen in recovery.
mm-hmm,
The other person will pray that the other person gets into recovery. They start recovering and they start to become that person, that becomes that almost like that rock.
mm-hmm,
And then the other person is not changing as much because they were almost getting off by being the nurse, by being the
yes,
caretaker, by enabling. And they don't realize that it's not just enough for the addict to get help, that the person that was living with the addict, maybe no fault of their own, maybe they
mm-hmm,
participated, but you cannot live in the same home or be in the same relationship and not get affected, and you need certain amount of healing too.
right,
You need certain amount of emotional growth. You got to do some journaling, go to therapy. You got to hire a coach. You got to do certain things because it doesn't just because you even if you get out of the even if you get out of the relationship, you are still feel whatever the consequences are of that relationship, and you need to grieve and learn from what you've done, either to build a better relationship or to build yourself better as you move on to the next relationship.
yeah. See, I did none of that when I after I got divorced. I went totally left, and I was just out here crazy, didn't care who I hurt because I was hurting, and you know that whole thing, hurt people hurt people. I'm hurt people that hurt people. That was me, and I I really, it took a long time for me to really like check myself, because like you said, I started thinking like the path to happiness isn't what I'm doing. Like I want happy. I want to do the happy stuff. I want to be in a happy relation. This is not. I have to stop. Like I have to detox from this. So I literally like I cut like and I have to say a lot of people can't do this or don't know how to do this or don't have the tools, and that's why we have therapists, coaches, whatever. But I literally was like, I have to stop because this is not healthy for me. And when I did do the stop, and I literally like started erecting my own boundaries and different types of things so that I would not behave the same when I went out into the world, and those things that would tempt me before, I was like, no, I'm moving differently now. And when I started making better decisions, the things that I wanted to come my way were better. Like the decisions were better. The candidates for dating were better because I had a filtration system. I wasn't going to let you take me back to that place. So I wanted to just share that. Like it wasn't easy because a lot of, to the point of the show, even though it's not the same as alcohol or gambling, when a lot, and I always tell people, sometimes when you're behaving in like a toxic manner, there's benefits that come with that. There's people that will gift you for being a asshole. They're like, oh, I want some of that. Let me, I want to date you, and I'm like, I'm treating you like crap, and you get the benefits, and you're like, oh, I'm being validated. Let me get a nut. Can I have another? I want more. But it's destructive in the end. It's destructive because you become something that you don't even recognize after a while. So,
You do. And here's the thing. So you brought up your kind of listeners and everything. And sometimes people maybe want some easy tips. And here's a couple things that I would always like to share. Number one, let's say a lot of people say, well, I think therapy or coaching is going to cost a lot of money. And okay, so first off, everybody is in control of their own emotional health. So you could hire a coach or go to a therapist and maybe just go for 2 or 3 sessions just to kind of flesh something out. You don't have to go for years. I was in
right.
therapy for years, but I had a lot of issues and there was a lot of things I needed to learn. you can just say, to me, I say the best thing is to do something maybe for about 6 weeks or 12 weeks. And that's why a lot of insurance companies will always have probably about anywhere from 5 to 10 free sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Because insurance companies at a lot of big corporations or big companies realize that people need a release. And a lot of people have that at their disposal, and they can then use that resource to kind of just get better insights into themselves. And the other big tip I like to say is a lot of people throw out, like you go into a store or you see family and someone will say, "How are you doing?" Sometimes they'll say, "How are you feeling?" And a lot of people will answer with, "I'm good, I'm fine, and I'm okay." And realize those are not feelings.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as an okay feeling, a good feeling, or I'm a fine feeling. And so if someone asks you that question and you answer and you cannot really come up with what you're feeling immediately,
Yeah.
then it means you need to do some work. It's no different than if you feel like you need to get in shape, well, you need to walk around the neighborhood for about 20 minutes. You got to start
Mm-hmm.
somewhere and then either pick up a podcast, start journaling, read a book, do a course. There's so much information out there because in the end, the only person you're cheating is yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I I'm blessed to have a wife that does that feeling question like often. And she and when you hear it for the first few times, it's almost jarring because you kind of don't normally tap into that side of yourself. You're
You feel
just
like you're falling into a trap.
yeah,
You feel
yeah,
like you're falling
like
into
what? Like how are you feeling? Like I know you're okay, but how are you feeling? And then it's like I gotta dig deeper. Like I gotta like how am I feeling? And it's like once you start to really like dig into that part of yourself, you find it freeing when you actually are able to speak it out to someone, and then they have the opportunity to to possibly assist you or possibly help you talk it out because now they have the information. So that question is important. My friend Erica in Dope Discussions Live, she does it a lot too. She'll like instead of her saying, she'll say good morning and then she'll say, how are you feeling? Or she'll say, how's your mental health today? Like those questions require answers that aren't one word. And I love that because it makes me have to really look at how I'm really feeling because we're so used to like the I'm okay mask. I used to have a mask around here that I wrote I'm good on it, and I'm like, we all wear that mask that says I'm good or I'm okay, but it's always something else going on, and we like you said in the beginning of the show, normally we only really like in our minds connect with a couple of them, but it's like a whole it's a whole range of things that you could be going through that we don't even really connect to in our mind because we weren't taught or whatever. Like we do anger very well, like we do those things very well, but the whole plethora of different emotions that are out there that we can tap into, it's like I said, it's powerful when you can really understand what you're going through.
Well, I like to say this one thing. What do especially men, now women too, men will say, "I just want great sex," or "I want more sex." And I say, "Hey, that's a really achievable goal." And they'll say, "Really?" Because a lot of men will think to be a man is to be stoic. To be a real
Mm-hmm.
man, my woman wants me to really be stand up straight and just take on things. And that is so far from the truth. You can ask any woman, and women will be the same way too, but let's just focus on the men right now.
Mm-hmm.
If you go up to any woman and ask them if your man was more open in sharing their feelings, and it could be a feeling they could be saying, "I'm joyful," or they may say a feeling, "I'm feeling really frustrated now." The woman is going to go more in, she's going to go further into you, especially when you do like a negative emotion like frustration or I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling stressed or I'm worried. A woman is going to want to comfort you in a lot of ways, so there'll be a certain amount of
Mm-hmm.
intimacy, but in other ways they're going to want to have more sex with you, maybe not that night or that moment, maybe later that night or the next day or that week, because they feel like they understand you better. And I tell men all the time, look, we all want a great sex life. Then learn how to become more emotionally available, and you will see the floodgates open. And the same thing with women. Women, once they open up more, it's easier for women, just the way our society is constructed. Women open up easier than men, but the more a woman opens up, the more the man wants to do for them, like work a little harder, go
Hmm.
do extra things, whether it's in the bedroom or vacation or going to, and it's amazing how the other person responds when a person is much more open with their feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell people when you can communicate in that level where you can be vulnerable, because this is the person that we're supposed to love the most, but it's also a lot of times a person that we fear sharing stuff with. But when you get to the point where you're comfortable saying this is how I feel, it changes the whole trajectory of the whole thing. Like once you can do that, the whole thing changes. Like literally, like almost like that day. Like you and I'm speaking, you can see the passion. I've done this. I've had to do this because I was always the guy where my wife was like, I know something's wrong, but you're not telling me. What is it? And then, she kind of backed off for a little bit, but then she was like, Derek, I'm here. Right? That's the thing. I'm here. Right? She knew that she needed to not have the approach of, tell me what's the matter. It was, I'm here. When you ready, I'm here, but I know something's in there. And then that gave me the peace to be able to go in and say, okay, I think I'm a little depressed. I'm going through some stuff. And then it was like, aha. So let's now work on together how we can get you back to a point where you're, operating it at, in your normalcy of who we know you to be. Because like we said in the beginning of the show, the behavior always tells the story. It always tells. It's like, oh, Derek, you're sleeping more than normal. Oh, Derek, you're not doing. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. What are you talking about? The behavior always tells. You just have to be able to see it, but it's always there. So what I want to do, because we're gonna start wrapping up, I want you to talk about the what you offer with your brand in terms of what you offer, recovery, and however you want to kind of like roll it out. But I want you to talk about the things that you offer to help people. Like what do you through your brand offer, and what sorts of things do you do to kind of help people? Like what does that look like, or how do you kind of roll it out to people?
Oh, I appreciate it. So it's mainly two things. If someone is already either trying to get into recovery, early recovery, I help people recover a lot faster, work the steps quicker. I have a, and it's also, and if you're just dealing with life and you're trying to gain more emotional intelligence, because ultimately, if you're in recovery, you're going to need the same thing. You're going to have to learn how emotions play into your life. So I have a course that's just come out. It's called the 12 Steps Explained, where you're gaining more emotional intelligence, where there's 3 questions to each step. So we have all the answers inside us. The problem is we don't know the questions to ask ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my experience has come through, where I know the questions to really guide you, as well as there's coaching, whether you're doing a one session for 45 minutes or you're doing it, you can do a package for 12 weeks, which, because I say in 12 weeks, you can accomplish so much in 90 days, 12
Mm-hmm.
weeks. And if you
Right.
just commit and do a lot of work, like almost like a crash course, there's so much you can achieve. And then of course, if you do a package, you're going to save money. And in the end, you save so much time. A lot of people think about it, and that's what I try to do is I help people save time because I'm going to get you into your emotional availability, emotional self much faster. And then I just
Yeah.
have another course that's a smaller course that talks about how to build strong character.
Mm.
It's just based on, and that's one of the things of really how, people want to partner with strong character. People want leaders with strong character. And then that's something else I offer. And then later on this year, I'm finishing writing this children's book because it's also going to start much younger. We need
Yes.
our kids to have a much bigger vocabulary around emotions. And so that's really something exciting. But yeah, if you go to lifeiswonderful.love, and I'll give it to you, you can put it in the notes, LOVE. That's the easiest way. You can then go into all my social media, go to the podcast, go into my online store, and that's the best way. And I'm just here. Really, I just want people to live their best life.
Right, right,
But
right,
I can help you get to your best life.
right. So I do have one qualifying question as far as like your course on 12 steps. Who's
Uh-huh.
the audience for that? Is it like, because when people hear it, they're probably going to think if I'm an alcoholic, or like, who's the audience for that? Because I think it might be broader than what people are thinking.
Well, that's what I said. The people that will be attracted to it the most are going to the people be in recovery, even if they
Hmm.
have a multiple years. Because a lot of people who just go into 12 step, they haven't done any real, true, deep emotional training.
Right.
And it's the same training that someone that's dealing with anxiety, depression, and a lot of feelings. So the questions aren't always just kind of like recovery related, the way the 12 steps put it out there. They're kind of set up because I've done a lot of emotional work, in therapy, and then just making myself into that kind of coach. There's a lot of psychological and emotional questions that you just need to answer for yourself, so then you can keep growing. And so that it's really designed for anyone that really wants to grow their emotional self.
Absolutely. And that's what I wanted to hear, because y'all need to take his course because there's a lot of us, and I'm saying us, that need help with the emotional stuff. Like, for what I do, people who are coming out of a breakup and a trauma, and all of the stuff that you go through right after, and sometimes it'll be months after, and they're still in that place, and the emotions are all over the place. They don't know which way is up. I don't know who I am, blah blah blah. In a lot of ways, there's a recovery that needs to happen there as well. And it's when I say most of my clients fall into this category of just, I don't know how to move past this point. What do I do? What path can I go on? Because this person that did all of these horrible things to me, they keep calling, and I feel like I have to pick the phone up, and I'm like, no, you don't. You don't have to pick the phone up. Like, and so there's recovery that has to happen there as well, and it's very emotion driven. So anybody who whether it's yourself or somebody you know and love, like, point them to Hugo, and really take your development, personal development, your recovery, take it serious, because we only have one of these lives. So we got to get it. And my audience is at 18, so we're not getting any younger. Like, we we got to make these years count. We literally do. And recover, going through recovery, it's not just like we talked about, the environment that you're around. It will help you, but like, especially if you have kids, they want the best version of you. They want that consistency that Hugo talked about. Um, in order for you to be consistent, that head has to be level. Like, you have to be, you have to deal with those things that you've been fighting with for years. I'm assuming for a lot of people. So this is good, Hugo. We're gonna have to do this again.
Yeah, we are. And like I say, look, and there's plenty of stuff on the website that's free too. So if you
Okay.
want to continue to kind of learn, I got over 45 free videos, a number of podcasts. So you can start to kind of almost, learn a little bit more.
Right. Absolutely. So, even though you did a few times, tell them the website one more time.
Lifeiswonderful.love, L
See
O
how
V
easy that is.
E.
That's an amazing, like, if branding wise and marketing wise, that's it doesn't get any better than that. I love it. So I thank you, sir, for coming on the show. This was good. Like I said, we got to do this again. And anytime you need me for anything or my support, I got you. Um,
I appreciate it.
And yeah, I think we're gonna wrap this up. Thank you again for coming on the show. And I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take you off screen. I appreciate you, sir. Everybody, I'll put his website and everything in the show notes. And we're gonna let Hugo go because I got some things I need to talk to y'all about. Because I got my own stuff to roll out. So Hugo, we will definitely stay in touch. And thank you so much for coming through, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night. All right, my people. This was good. Like, this was good. This was really good. Please, please, please. And I know that we have people in our families that are dealing with stuff. We are dealing with stuff. Put this show, take the link, send it out to them so that they can watch it, watch the replay or whatever they need to do. This is very, very valuable. And the last thing that I want to do, the Relationship Gumbo Love Academy is open. The doors of the church are open. Y'all can come in, go to the website, and I normally have a graphic up here, but I had some technical difficulties. But go to myrelationshipgumbo.com. That's the new website. Oh, actually, I take that back. I do have something. Go to myrelationshipgumbo.com. Check out the new website, but even more importantly, click the link to download the app. When you get in the app, everything is going to go down in the app. Your courses, your ebook, your discussion forums, the events that you RSVP to, that'll be free. We have a free one coming up July 29th, next Friday at 8:30 p.m. We're going to talk about just some of your horrible dating stories. We're just going to laugh and have fun. And just have a good time on Friday night, because I know a lot of us aren't out in the streets like how we probably used to be, because there's some stuff floating around in the air. So you might want to come in and join, but the only way you can join is you got to get in the app. So do that. If you have any issues, DM me, send me a message, email me. All the information's on the website, so make sure you go there. And let's have fun while we're healing. Let's engage with each other, meet some new people, network, and all that good stuff. So on that note, I'm going to end the podcast, and you guys have an amazing night. Stay safe, and I always say take care of the little ones, the old ones, everyone in between, but especially you. So I will talk to you guys soon, and we will see you next week, same time, same place.
Okay, everybody wants good love, that's true, I know. Derrick Jones about to break it down with the Relationship Gumbo. Welcome to the podcast. Ain't no doubt we all need this, ayy, cause better relationships need better ingredients, ayy. So if you want better relations, it's about communication, finding love, staying together. We all wanna make it better, yeah. Derrick Jones, the host, your relationship coach.